folks. Hope you're having a very, very, very good day. It is time for a chill out session, as it is time for a more chilled part of the week where we go over your questions that have been left on the Patreon. If you like what I do, the way to get in touch with me and to talk to me and to basically, give me questions at least once a month is to go on the Patreon and do it there. There is no cut-off point. You can give 1p or 1 penny, 1 cent, or $100. It doesn't matter. Everybody on the Patreon gets equal access to giving me questions for the monthly Q&A. I try and do these more than monthly if I can do, but monthly is the best way I can ensure that I'm going to do it, or I'm going to have some good questions waiting for me. It also helps support the channel as well, so if you can do support the channel, get out there and help keep the lights on. It's always good. Also, the subscribe button, if you can't afford to do that, hit the subscribe button if you've never seen me before. I mean, I don't know why you'd be watching a Q&A if you've never seen me before, but hello, if you haven't seen me before, nice to meet you. Head over to the subscription box down below, click that button, because it does not help me, help the channel, helps us grow, helps us help more people. So, Q&A this week, we have as I say a lot of time, smorgasbord. We have a large plethora of wonderful questions that are here, and a few of them are a bit more serious than others. I've seen most of them. There are a few of them I haven't seen. I've just copied and pasted over here from Patreon, so let's jump on. There are no names attached to these. I never attach names to them, simply because people are giving money on Patreon, and I don't really want to out people, because you can. There are some personal things in some of these questions that I'd rather not get out there for people, Anyway, first question is, Dear Northern Exile, since you have a lot of fatherly advice, so to speak, on your channel, I wanted to ask for your advice on something and hope that others can benefit from your insight as well. At this time, I have found out that the biggest roadblock in my life revolves around something I think most of us can relate to. That is our relationship with our family. Oh boy, oh yeah. Before I ask the big question, a bit of backstory may help to set the stage. At around 6 or 7, my family split up, with my mother and father divorcing one another. To put it mildly, my father was a very mentally ill individual who would have drastic personality swings, such as those who have multiple personality disorder. This taught me many things early in life, such as my father wasn't a safe person to be around or to be trusted. Thus, I tended to cling to my mother and sister for support. As I grew up, we bonded to be close, despite the lack of stability we had from my father being so troubled. I didn't realise it at the time, but my mother, sister and I became deeply immersed into a codependent relationship dynamic, where I felt no one could really say how they felt around one another in case they upset the delicate balance of the other person's feelings. Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar, but I'll get into that when I answer the question. Fast forward to the present day. I'm 37 years old, and despite decades of struggling with my mental health, I'm feeling the best that I ever have. But there's one nagging issue that just won't go away. This is dealing with my family. I currently live like 4.5 hours away from my family, my mother and sister. It's close enough that I am not truly disconnected from them, but far enough away that it's a hassle to try and meet face to face on a regular. About every week, they will try to reach out via text to either ask to talk, or the phone, or come see me in person. When they contact me, it's as if an old ex is messaging me after months of calm. I get annoyed because of the simple fact that I don't want to be around my sister and mother right now. Whether it's dealing with the drama that always accompanies my sister and her chaotic lifestyle, or trying to protect my mother's fragile personality when I'm together with her. Oh my god, yeah. I just don't have the energy to deal with these dynamics anymore. I'm much happier when they don't contact me and leave me alone to live my life as an independent adult. So my question is, what do you think someone in my position should do? I have a lot of trouble setting boundaries with them, and I've done a so-so job thus far in that regard. They either don't pick up on the underlying tone of what I'm trying to tell them, or in my mother's case, don't respect the boundary that I've clearly set. Making a request to see me when I've already told them I'm not feeling up to it before doing so is one of the things that they keep doing. I feel like they're wanting me to drop everything and come running to comfort them, as I have in the past, but I can no longer be that person. I think I'm going to have to tell them that I am uncomfortably frank, in an uncomfortably frank way, that I just cannot, I just don't want to see them right now, but that is much easier said than done. Yeah, no shit, man. Please feel free to give your thoughts, and if you think this is worth sharing, please do. We all go through similar struggles, and the last thing I would want is any lesson learned to go unshared. Well, thank you very much, and I am sharing it on the Q&A. So, I have a very similar relationship with my mum, and I think one of the main things about growing up that sucks is realizing that your parents are not infallible. In fact, your parents sometimes are dumb as fuck. Not that my mum's dumb, but you know what I'm saying? Like, your parents make mistakes, your parents don't know everything, and your parents have some serious character flaws. For the longest time in my family, so my family dynamic was essentially my dad and my mum split up when I was very, very young, and I lived with my mum. And she was great. She brought me and my sister up on her own because she married somebody else and had a kid with him. That was my sister, and then they split up, and eventually they got back together, sort of a thing later on. You know, it's one of those, and then they just never got married after that. They never got remarried. Anyway, moving on. I always felt like, you know, because I always felt like it was our little family and North. I'm not going to use my real name, but it's like our little family, and there's Northers here as well. They would look after me, they'd take care of me, they'd love me and all that sort of stuff, but I always kind of felt like the outsider. And a bit of that was me as well, don't get me wrong. A bit of that was just me. But at the same time, I did kind of feel that way. I did kind of feel like, well, you know, I'm on the outside here rather than being on the inside. So, I never realised that growing up. That's something that I realised later on when I got older. And actually, my relationship with my ex from America, that was the breaking point. She didn't do anything wrong, but when she visited one time, I walked into the kitchen, and we have a kitchen in my mum's house, and like the conservatory area. And my missus at the time was just sitting off in the conservatory area, just doing, I think she was writing something, writing a card out or something. And I was in the kitchen with my stepdad and my mum and my sister. And we were all talking, having a bit of banter and stuff like that. And eventually I walked into where my missus was sitting, and I sat down, I started talking to her. And my family went out. They went out and did something else, and we were minding the house, we were minding the dogs for the evening. And over dinner, my ex said to me, do you mind if I ask you something? And I said, by the way, when your missus says that to you, you're like, oh no, here we go. And I said, yeah, sure, ask away. She said, do they always speak to you like that? And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, like you know, they were like taking the piss a lot. They were like having a go at you a lot, like snide comments and all that. And I was like, yeah, but we give and take though, don't we? And she said, no, I didn't hear you do it once. Like, you were actually, you know, quite diplomatic. Like, you weren't really giving it back at all. And I was like, oh, really? And that's what kind of pulled the wool away from my eyes. I was like, oh, all right. And I re-examined that relationship. And finally, when my relationship with that lady broke down, and I came back home, and I got lots of therapy, that's one of the things that we explored. And it was like, yeah, you know, your parents aren't infallible. They do make mistakes, and they do have biases, and your parents do have favourites. I'm sorry to tell you, if you are a sibling, no matter how many times your parents tell you they don't have favourites, yes they do. You know, it's ingrained, it's just there. One person will favour one of the children, it's going to happen. You know, it doesn't mean that they're bad people, but just is what it is, right? So, from then on in, essentially, I started re-examining my relationship with my mum, and I realised a lot of my more, shall we say, toxic, angry traits don't come from the men in my life. They come from my mum. Now, my mum's the best person in the world, by the way. Like, my mum's awesome. Like, she's really, really, really cool, and you know, it's not one of those where it's, what am I trying to say? It's not one of those where it's like she's an awful person. No, she has flaws. She has flaws. And I recognise a lot of my flaws in her. In fact, she just stood up here in my office the other day and started talking about her phone that wasn't working, and I tried to fix it for her. So I was trying to explain it, and she got very flustered with me and snatched it out of my hand and said, "Oh, I'll ask someone else to do it." And I just started. Now, back in the day, I would have reciprocated with anger to her anger, and we would have ended up arguing because we're very alike that way. We have very similar temperaments and tempers, and because I've been through therapy, I just started laughing, but laughing as in a camaraderie. I wasn't laughing at her; I was laughing at the situation. And she said, "What?" I said, "Just you, just having a little hissy fit." And she just burst out laughing. She literally went from seething anger to just bursting out laughing. When I said, "No, it's you, just having a little hissy fit. Don't be rending your garments. Give me the phone here, I'll fix it." So I fixed it in 2 minutes. I said, "Yeah," and then I'll explain to you how it works. And I explained how it works. It was all fine, right? That just shows you what therapy does, right? It transformed that relationship, and now I recognise the flaws in my mum's personality, so I know where to sidestep around them when that needs to be done, right? I know when to confront them when that needs to be done, and I know when to ignore them when that needs to be done. And, me and my mum can't live together. We drive each other insane, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem you're having here is that your mum doesn't really know boundaries. She was with a very abusive person, it sounds like, and because you're the other man in her life, you became the protection. You became the rock. Okay, that's a much harder situation to walk away from. But what I would suggest is you set up those clear boundaries, but you give it stakes. All right, I would suggest that you give it stakes, which means, Mum, here are the boundaries. If these boundaries are crossed, I will recede from contact. I will never walk away from you completely. I'm not a monster, but I will pull back from contact for a while. These are my boundaries. I want a family of my own, right? I can't look after you if I have a family of my own to look after. That's just not how this works. You're my parent. All right? When you're in your dotage, I will find you someone to look after you, and I will be there for you financially and otherwise. And if I have the time available, I will also take care of you myself, right? But I have my own family to take care of. And if I don't right now, I want my own family to take care of, and I can't do that if I'm taking care of you all the time, right? Your sister is another thing entirely, right? Don't get me wrong. Please don't think I'm being too harsh, but fuck your sister. Don't actually, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, don't truck with her. She's an adult. She can take care of herself. Get on with it. Get on with it. Like you I do that with my sister as well, right? Okay. My sister's a lot calmer than my mum, but she can be very, very judgmental in her intellectuality, and I just sidestep it. I just go, "No, I'm not dealing with that. Sorry." I'm not dealing with it, and I just sidestep it, and I talk to them. I talk to them when I have the energy to talk to them, and it's taken years and years and years of training for me to be able to just walk away and be like, "Yeah," and they don't hear from me for about a day or two, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm not speaking to anyone. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm trying to get my work done. I'm trying to, run my life. Thank you. And I'll come back and I'll talk to you." Listen, your family are meant to be a support network for you as well. You're not meant to be the rock and that's it. Okay? Your sister is an adult. She can get on with her life. And if she doesn't want to do that, then lay out those clear boundaries and give her actual, honest to God consequences and say, "Look, if I don't get this, then this will happen. I will recede from contact and I'll withdraw my support for a while," right? Same with your mum. "Listen, mum, I've given you boundaries before. You don't respect them, so now I'm afraid I have to insist. These are the boundaries. If you go past these boundaries, I will pull back on my contact and I will need a break and I'll go and do my own thing because I need to make a family as well. I need to make a life as well," okay? Again, being selfish sometimes is the right thing to do. And in this situation, being selfish is absolutely the right thing to do. It doesn't make you a bad person. It does not make you a bad person. Make sure that those boundaries are in place. And if they overstep those boundaries, don't just carry on. Withdraw. Withdraw contact. So no, I gave you a chance and you took the piss. I'm withdrawing contact. Sorry. I will be back. But I need to sort my shit out right now. And I can't trust you to just leave me alone to get it done. So, I'll be back. It doesn't mean I love you any less. I'll be back. But just bear with me whilst I get this stuff sorted out, right? That's what I would do, okay? Alright, moving on. Dear North, another Q&A for you. After watching your Decimus video, oh, it's a lore question. After watching your Decimus video, cool concept by the way, I came up with one of my own. Get rid of the position of Chaos Warmaster entirely. Now is the perfect time since Abaddon is off on holiday with Vashtor. Alright, that's cool. Okay, alright. Okay. Have all of the traitor Primarchs come back into the Imperium Nihilus. Sans Horus. Then, over the course of several editions, have Imperium Nihilus be conquered by various Renegade, Chaos and Xenos forces, only having Baal remain an Imperial bastion. Now, instead of having one moustache-twirling bad guy who is past his prime, you now have a rogues gallery of villains, new and old. Then, in time, Baal falls as well, being a huge event, and the Blood Angels forced to abandon their home. Over the course of time, the Imperium is pushed back further and further towards Terra in an absolute churning maelstrom of war and carnage. Have this tracked by various maps, showing the ever shrinking Imperium, despite humanity's heroic determination to endure, only to have it crushed by an uncaring universe. Even have the rest of the loyal and lost Primarchs come back, and have them paraded through great victories to add passages to their sagas. Only for these victories to ring rather hollow, as everything is put to the flame everywhere else. I feel this sort of brutality would bring out the best in the setting, by making it more of an inevitable loss, a slow decline. What do you think, North? Does my idea have any merit, or am I grasping at straws? No, it definitely does. It definitely does. One thing I will say is that I thought when they brought back Imperium Nihilus that this is kind of the direction that they were going in. It turns out, no, it's just like another part of the Imperium that it's hard to get to because of the Great Rift. I mean, okay, fine. But at the same time, you know, we really do need a reason for the Imperium Nihilus being there, right? If the Imperium can survive without the Astronomicon, then what was the point in the Astronomicon to begin with? Again, these are the holes that Games Workshop paint themselves into. Imperium Nihilus has very little influence from the Emperor's Beam of Light, the Astronomicon, right? So if that's the case, how is it still surviving? Answers on the postcard, please, because we were told as soon as that went away, everything's fucked. We were told that for decades, but now they've gone back on that and said, actually, no, that's not the case. So what's the point in even having it then? What is the point of having the Imperium Nihilus, and what is the point in having the Astronomicon if none of those two things are affected in any way? This is the thing that drives me up the wall with 40k, with the 40k setting. There are no stakes, and the reason why there are no stakes is because no matter what Games Workshop do, nothing is allowed to change. Nothing is allowed to change. The borders are not allowed to move. Everything must stay just as it was. So everybody gets to fight over things all the time. What I like about this is, it's combining the two ideas. This is a really good idea because it's giving the Imperium Nihilus some stakes to being there, right? Because there's no Astronomicon, the forces of the Imperium can only travel short distances, whilst the forces of the Warp can go wherever they want, whenever they want. We should be losing Nihilus. We should be losing the northern quadrant of the galaxy, slowly but surely. It just should be happening, right? And yes, it should be pushing towards Imperial space, because it's growing. We're told it's growing all of the time. So have that happen then, and have every single victory that we do hold back the tide of chaos for another day, another year. Wonderful stuff. What you've done there is you've solved the problem of the Imperium winning worldwide events. Really, Games Workshop need Chaos to win most of these events to keep driving the story in the way that they want to. But most of the time, Chaos do win sometimes, but most of the time they don't. Most of the time the Imperium wins. So what they need to do is have Chaos win in the lore all the time, and have the Imperium win in the overall campaigns, the worldwide campaigns all the time. That would be the best way to do it. But again, giving the players this much agency is probably going to lead to disaster anyway. But you've had a really good idea there. I really do like it. I really do like it. All right, moving on. What do you think of the phrase "those who can't teach"? It seems pretty harsh to me. Some of the most skilled folks I've ever known at certain crafts have ended up teaching and training others. Okay, so I've been told this, those who can't teach thing, I've been told that a few times. The thing is, it's a sports analogy. That's what you need to remember, it's a sports analogy, okay? It's not even an analogy, it's a sports saying. Those who can't play football, soccer to those Philistine Americans, those who can't play soccer properly end up becoming coaches. Most of the top managers who have ever managed in the game, the top coaches who have ever coached in soccer and football, right? They've not been very good players. But they've been very good coaches. Right? Same thing goes for American football. Bill Belichick, right? Was he an amazing football player? I don't think he was, right? But he's he was an amazing coach. That's where that comes from. You don't find Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whoever these people are teaching how to play basketball, because they've made enough money that they don't have to do that because they were so good. Well, coaches are different, right? But the thing that people don't get is that because certain players leave the profession early, like a lot of the top coaches in football right now are guys who had playing careers but they were cut short by injury. Well, those players are desperate for recognition in football, they're desperate to succeed in football, and they don't have very much money. And so they drive themselves to become coaches, and they become the best coaches in the world because they have to. That's what people don't tend to get. That's why the sports analogy doesn't really work. Because the best teachers are the ones who hone their craft and feel their craft and make sure that they're the best at what they possibly do. I would rather have one of those coaches teaching me football than have a Cristiano Ronaldo teaching me. Because Ronaldo doesn't need to teach me football. He's already multi-millionaire. Right? Whereas his actual coach, who's qualified and a good coach, needs to teach me and needs me to get better so he can carry on in his job. I'd rather have that guy. So those who can't teach, it only works in sports, really. And even then, it's a spurious thing. You know, it's not really something that any other field, by the way, that it falls down, right? Are you telling me a physicist who teaches physics can't do physics? Are you telling me a historian who teaches history doesn't know anything about history? No, of course you're not. That would be retarded, right? That'd be silly. Of course. There will be exceptions out there, I'm sure, somewhere. Somebody will, in the comment section, say, well, there's one exception. Maybe. But it's the exception that proves the rule. It's still a bullshit phrase that doesn't really matter and actually makes sense when you think about it. Moving on. Do you still talk to people at Games Workshop? Ooh. And if so, are you on good terms? So, depends on who you ask. It depends who at Games Workshop you're speaking to. If you're speaking to one or two trainers or managers, or even people at head office, that I was a royal pain in the arse when I was there, and I was asking for all sorts of things to be delivered to the store, and I was trying to do events in the store that weren't allowed, and I was trying to... Yeah, if you ask them, they'll say I'm a righteous pain in the arse, right? And that I was just annoying all the time. I also left, the back room, when I was at Games Workshop, was a fucking shit tip, because I was a one-man store, and I was fighting to make sure that we had events and everything going all the time, and in doing so, our store became very, very, very busy. So all of my day is spent out in front. I never spent any time at all in the back. So I just shoved things back there when I'm not here anyway. Yeah, shove all that in there, I don't care, right? I'm running the store, the store's doing well financially, I don't give a shit, right? I will say that, but aside from that, those people probably don't like me. But other managers that I spoke to, probably the people, my customers, or the managers that I spoke to, I have certain other trainers as well, will probably say that I was a decent guy. And I still do speak to several people at Games Workshop, yes. One of which is Julie, one of the ladies who works in our payroll department, or their payroll department, I suppose now. And she's lovely. And she's the one who actually signed me up to my pension. So when I actually went in there, they asked me if I was going to join the Games Workshop pension scheme, and I was like, no, how much is it a month? And he said about £60. I said, no, I want to have my £60, thanks. And she pulled me aside and said, no, I'm going to sign this. I'm going to sign you up for this anyway, because don't do that. And I said, why? And she said, because our scheme at Games Workshop is very, very, very good. Whatever you put into your pension scheme, we will match it. And if you're doing well in the company, we may even double it and actually go, we will double your contribution to your own pension. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I'll go for that. And whilst I was there, quite a lot of the times, monthly, they were doubling it. Because I was doing all right. I was doing quite well. So they were doubling it. So for every £60 I would put in, they'd put in 120. So that was a very good scheme, and she got me involved in that. And so I do often speak to people that are there, mainly just to shoot the shit and vent, because there are a lot of people that I speak to who need to vent because they're still there after 10, 15 years, and they're about to lose the will to live. But there's nowhere else really for them to go. If you leave Games Workshop in the Sphere and you're not running your own store, you're an independent business, where are you going to go? Wizards of the Coast don't have stores. What are you going to do? Yeah, so there will be certain people who definitely don't like me. I'm not even kind of sure. I'm sure there are people at Games Workshop who hate my fucking guts, who saw me as a pain in the arse, who kept asking for things, who kept pushing things, who kept asking questions, wasn't really towing the line. I was a royal pain in the arse to some people, and I'll be honest with you, towards the end of my time at Games Workshop, I was doing it on purpose. Towards the end of my time at Games Workshop, I felt so mistreated and mishandled that I just started winding people up on purpose. I was like, yeah, I'm leaving anyway. Go fuck yourself. I'm gonna call in that order that I wanted. I'm gonna call in, that window cleaning service that I wanted. I'm gonna try and get as much for this store that I can. I'm going to bug you and annoy you as much as I can, because I know I'm going anyway, and it is what it is. By the way, this is something that really fucked me off. This really fucked me off, right? I had customers who came into my store and bought stuff in my store, right? And they bought stuff and they loved it. I had one person that I was converting a model for, and I converted it for her. And I left it all in the back room. So I cleared space finally in the back room, and I left these models there with their names on them, with sticker tape, with their names on them, saying this goes to this person, this goes to this person, this goes to this person, right? With their names on them. I then left because my job was done. My contract was up. I'm done. Right? I go. Only for me to find out months later that those people never got those models. And what's more, I was blamed. I was blamed when I wasn't there, though, because they didn't have the fucking balls to do it when I was there. They waited till I was gone, and they waited till I was gone for like a month before saying, oh, we don't know where those models are. Now, what they've done is they've gone in, not looked, and chucked it all out. They've gone in, not looked at all, and chucked out all those models. Because they're worthless to them. That's what they've done. And then months later, they blame me. And that came up like 6, 7, 8 months after I'd left. I was told by somebody who was a support relief worker at the store, saying, "Oh yeah, they blamed you. They basically said, yeah, you must have put them somewhere in the store, and then they got thrown away. They were right there. They were literally right there. You couldn't miss them." So yeah, there are a lot of people at Games Workshop who probably don't like me. And since the videos, by the way, since these videos have started getting traction and have started doing okay, I know for a fact that there are certain people at Games Workshop who absolutely hate my guts. Yeah, absolutely. You do not leave Games Workshop and talk shit about Games Workshop. That is the absolute final sin. They absolutely despise me. I would say it's like a 70-30 split. 70% hate me. I've never met me. Right? 70% of them fucking hate my guts and have never met me. They don't know who I am. They only know the name Northern Exile, but they despise me. Right? And there's about 10 to 15% of those who have actually met me and still despise me. That's fine. No problem. Right? And then there's the 30% who met me there and actually got that I was, I hated it and they actually like me. So, through various things, through me being a pain in the arse when I was there, and being campaigning for things like wanting store tournaments and wanting store events and wanting I wanted to support local university teams. I sponsored our local university team. I didn't use the Games Workshop logo. I just used the store name. I gave them the store name and said it's run by this place and so yeah, I just wanted to get involved in a local scene. Wasn't my bag, wasn't my thing. The local trade account didn't like me either because, you know, they kept asking me for stock and I wouldn't give it to them because you're not a Games Workshop store, so go fuck yourself. And by the way, you're selling my product at 20% off, 30 yards down the road. Why the fuck would I give you any of my stock? Go away, right? I wasn't like that with them, but you know, I would say no, definitely. So yeah, and of course, my old manager as well, when I was there, was we didn't get on, to say the very least. And eventually, when I got my own store, I'm pretty certain that he was bad-mouthing me to other managers and shit like that, but I'm not really certain. Anyway, yeah, so I'm pretty sure that, you know, a good amount of people don't like me. But that's also my self-esteem coming up there as well. That's just me. I'm pretty down on myself most days, so there might be a lot of me having low self-esteem in there as well. I don't know. But I will say this. Everybody that I speak to from Games Workshop, who still works there, likes me. Or at least they're polite to me, and we have a nice little chat. So, you know, guess that's something. I don't know. So yeah, the nice people I speak to, I'm on good terms with. I'm in a WhatsApp group with managers and other folks like that, who I'm on good terms with. But yeah, there's a very good reason why people like Suggs at Rogues Hobbies and other people don't talk bad about Games Workshop, because the minute they do that, you're out, you are gone. And I couldn't hold it in. I wanted to tell my story and get it out there, and that's how this channel really got started. Was me venting about my time at Games Workshop back in a time when it meant a lot more to me than it does now. Right? I will say this: it means a lot less to me now than it used to. I used to carry a lot of hatred and a lot of heartbreak and disenchantment with Warhammer and with Games Workshop themselves for a long time, for a hell of a long time. And I let that go maybe a year or two ago. I let that go. It finally went, you know. And, you know, told my story. So telling my story on here had a lot to do with it way back in the day, 2018, 2019. It had a lot to do with it. And then that lanced the wound. And then eventually the infection stopped. It healed up and now it's gone. So I don't really feel any anger or you know, bitterness towards Games Workshop at all. I think anybody who tries to work for them is doing themselves a service, because if you can get a decent store and a decent trainer behind you who's going to protect you from the bullshit that's further up the chain, and if you can get good managers around you who are also going to help you out and make sure that you know what you're doing and nurse you through the process, you now have the best job in the world. You do. It's just that there are so many people there spoiling it for everybody else. Unfortunately. But that's not my problem anymore. So anyway, moving on. Would you ever run or get involved with running a hobby store ever again? It seems like a lot of stress to me. Okay. If the money was right and if the community was right, yes, I would. I would not run a store on Games Workshop wages. You just try paying me £1,000 a month to run a business and see how far you get. You try paying me £1,000 a month after tax and see how far you get with me. You can go swivel. I'm not taking on a 40-hour-a-week job that is full of stress for just over £1,000 a month after tax. Go fuck yourself, right? That's not what's happening. So if the pay was there, I'm talking £1,800 to two grand a month. I'm talking £24,000 a year. That's the pay grade I'd be expecting to even consider dropping what I'm doing now. And I'd be taking a cut even then. You know, I mean, if I really went for it now, I lose money teaching. I'm in the private sector now. So when I do this channel and I write my scripts and I record my videos and I do all that sort of stuff, I take time away from earning money, from earning money teaching privately. So, you know, that's if I packed in the channel and packed in my teaching and devoted all my time to a job, I'd still be taking a pay cut, because if I taught all of the time, all the hours of the day that I could, I'd be earning more than that, right? So that's the actual minimum that I'd take to go and do a job like that. That's the reason why we do Patreon, is because, you know, I need to be able to go to my family and my daughter and other people and say, this is why I'm doing YouTube, right? I'm doing YouTube 50% of the time, even though YouTube only earns me like 5% of my money, 10% of my money. But as long as I'm getting that in, I can say, look, it's there. I can justify spending the time doing it, right? Just is what it is. But yeah, it would take a bit of money to get me into a store, and also I'd want to scout the community first. So I'd probably go to the store, I'd scout it first, I'd talk to people around the place, I'd make sure that I got to know them, that I knew what people wanted, I knew what I should be ordering, and I knew what kind of games and tournaments I should be running, and then, if all that checks out, then I'll run the store. But yeah, it is a lot of stress, so unless that all happened, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. Alright, next question. Will you be my daddy? This happens every fucking time. I'm not your daddy, alright? Just a guy with a massive schlong. No, I'm kidding. Will Games Workshop ever lose their market dominance, do you think? I'll read that again so I don't trip over my own words. Will Games Workshop ever lose their market dominance, do you think? No. I think Games Workshop are too entrenched, and I think the marketability of their assets is too virulent, right? It's now a pop culture thing. It's like getting rid of Disney. Will Disney ever lose their market dominance of whatever we're doing? No, I honestly don't think that they will. They will literally, be always Disney. They're never going to go anywhere. They're always going to dominate the animation sphere. Fortunately and unfortunately, we have the same thing with Games Workshop. They will always be around. They're never going anywhere. They're making too much money. What I will say is, if there ever is a viable alternative, and I mean, when I say viable alternative, I don't mean what's a better game in your opinion. I don't mean that. I mean, if we ever see another brand in wargaming that is as cool and as virulent in its hold on people and in its appeal and pricing to Games Workshop, if we ever see somebody do that, that would be an interesting day indeed. It's going to take a lot of money and kind of a miracle. Same thing happened with AEW in wrestling, right? Everybody thought WWE was the be-all, end-all for a long time. And, nobody could challenge WWE in America. And then AEW comes along. But who owns AEW? A multi-billionaire owns AEW. It was a miracle that a guy like that was just so happened to be interested in wrestling, this niche hobby, and then made his own company. And it just so happened that there was a groundswell of support for a movement like that just as that guy came along. And that's how that company came about. And that's how it's still going, still thriving. It's still number 2 to WWE, don't get me wrong, but it's not a distant number 2. It's just number 2, like nicely nestled just below it, right? Which is where we want it to be, really. It's good. That's what it would take for somebody to come and take some of Games Workshop's market share. It would take an absolute, aligning of all the planets, aligning of all the variables. So you've got, the market is ready for it. The fans are ready for it. There is an owner of the company who has the money and the capital to put into making a product that's going to take them on. All of those things need to come together, and Games Workshop need to be having a torrid time of it. The time to do this would have been during 6th and 7th edition. That was the time. For me, that was the golden opportunity for somebody else to come along and smash Games Workshop's market share. Not with a game like War Machine or whatever, not like that. No. I mean, a company with billions of pounds behind it, with a wargamer who has a lot of money behind them, who comes in and really takes it to them. That was the chance. That was the chance to snatch away a load of Games Workshop's market share and make this hobby better for everybody. Instead, Games Workshop righted itself, which was very nice to see. But in doing that, they remained the biggest and pretty much only player in the room. And a monopoly is never good for the consumer. It just isn't, right? Anyway, that was Q&A for the day. I am Northern Exile. I love you all very much. I love you a long time. I will be back tomorrow with some Hobby Nightmares. And I'll speak to you then. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye.